Okay, Ankad, in which medium do you prefer to give your interview?
I think you must find English or Hindi.
That's your one.
English.
English. Okay. So, okay, Ankad, introduce yourself.
I'm Angadpreet Singh Brar. I'm basically from Brar, and my aim in life has always been being part of civil service, and that's how I am here, and I hope to make a difference in people's lives by being a civil servant. And when in the future, if I look back, I hope to have no regret in actually feel that I've made a difference in people's lives, and actually my life has had an impact on other people's lives.
Okay. So, as you have done your MS from the University of California, right?
Yes.
Okay. That was back in 2020.
Yes.
You have completed.
Yes.
So, after that, what were you doing?
As I said, that my aim has always been civil services, so that's the first thing I did after coming back from the US.
Okay.
I've been preparing for civil services since then.
Okay. So you came back, okay.
Yes, sir.
So why didn't you opt to get a job in that field, civil and environmental engineering?
Yes, sir. Sir, my aim was
to serve the public.
Yes.
Right, the bottom line.
So I went to the US because I got a scholarship, a very prestigious scholarship, and it was like an opportunity to study from the top public university of the world. So my basic aim was civil services.
To get into the civil service.
Yes, sir. So I got the degree and came back.
Okay. So why did you, when your dream, started that you want to be a civil servant, when you were in doing your masters or when you were in graduation?
So from the very beginning.
From the very beginning,
Yes,
when you were doing your schooling.
From the school years.
Okay. Then what's the purpose of? Then why didn't you opt for the humanities subject? Because in the CSE there are so many humanities subjects. I think you should have pursued the BA and the MA, and then it would be quite easy for you. Don't you think so that it is the wastage of resources that as you have done your graduation from prestigious institute, Pack College, Chandigarh, right? It is a government funded college. Then obviously you didn't opted for a job in this field.
So being an engineer also, like if you get a job as an engineer in the government sector and the private sector, what you're basically doing, you're serving the public. So if I'm serving the public in some other capacity, then I would definitely do it. And there was always an environment of studying science and technology in my home, because my parents, both of them are in civil service, but both of them, they have been educators, and but both of them are my mother is masters in physics and my father is a PhD in physics.
Okay.
So the science and technology environment has always been there, but my major aim was always civil service.
Right. Okay. So Angad, as you have mentioned that, okay, first of all, tell me about, as you are also a CSCS friend, so the Honorable Supreme Court back in 2017, when they allowed the women of the menstruating age to enter into the inner sanctum of the temple. So they have told that traditional norms cannot be a guide to constitutional morality. So they were right in that.
So I think that when we talk about constitutional morality, when we talk about modern society, we think in terms of social engineering. So when times change, things like, because some of the traditions that are based, like which are the older traditions, they are based on some superstitions. So if those superstitions can be done away with, and Supreme Court or the judiciary or the legislature has a duty in doing away with those superstitions, and in that through that bringing women empowerment. So if Supreme Court says that for the sake of constitutional morality and for the sake of women empowerment, it is important for women to get that chance to also pray in front of their gods. So that should be given to them.
So as you said that traditional norms, they doesn't have any scientific background, but many of them are good to go, right? They are good. Every traditional norm is not a bad thing.
No, sir. Obviously, not every traditional norm is a bad thing, but a traditional norm which is an impediment to women empowerment, or impedes the development of women or one section of society, that traditional norm should be questioned, and there has to be something to be done about it.
Don't you think so that it will be encroachment on the fundamental rights of the individual or the on the society as a whole?
That's a big question, sir. That's true.
What are your views about it?
Yes, sir. So I think that there are some rights that have to take precedence over some other rights. Like there is a right to life and liberty, and that has to take precedence over right to religion. If that right to religion is becoming an impediment once again to the development of a section of society, you can't because then that's a violation of right to life, Article 29. So that can't be it. So it's obvious that for the development of the whole society, for the development of every section, every vulnerable section of the society, it's important that we have to give precedence to some right over another.
Okay. Okay. Angadpreet, recently the India concluded its presidency in G20. So
Yes.
what was important about the G20
So
during
I
the
think-
India's presidency?
Yes, sir, I think the biggest achievement was bringing in African Union into the G20. So that's a big achievement. Because the focus is now shifting towards the global south, and as the world order is changing, the power is shifting from west to east and from north to south. It was important to get the voice of a whole continent into a body as important as G20. So the membership of African Union as permanent member of G20 was probably the most important thing that happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other achievement? What about the G20 declaration?
Yes, sir. That was also a big achievement, bringing in so disparate views into one declaration. That was also a big achievement by India, and especially the paragraphs on Ukraine and climate change as well. So that was also a big achievement.
Okay. India, right after when the America exited from the Afghanistan, right? Now, what are the India's stake in Afghanistan? Should India deal with the Taliban? But currently, the government of India have a policy for the Afghanistan.
As per the India's policy is that they are calling for an inclusive government in Afghanistan which respects human rights, respect rights of women and minorities, and obviously they can't recognize Taliban until this happens in Afghanistan. Of course, India has stakes in Afghanistan. You have to prevent Afghanistan from being used as a terror haven, and there are so many human connections between India and Afghanistan. And we also have Pakistan angle, and we have to prevent Pakistan from using Afghanistan as a terror haven. So obviously India has to engage, but as India is engaging at a limited level, like recently India engaged with Afghanistan through the Moscow format dialogue. So at this level India is engaging, but obviously India is demanding that an inclusive government is formed, only then full engagement can happen.
Okay, and previously how India was engaged with the Pakistan with the previous government before the exit of USA,
With the government of Pakistan.
with the government of Afghanistan before the exit of USA.
Yes, sir. So there was full engagement, diplomatic engagement, and developmental assistance. Especially many, for example, Salma Dam, the Parliament building of Afghanistan was built by India. Even the Zaranj-Telaram link road was helped by India. So there was full engagement, and there was humanitarian assistance, and people of Afghanistan were freely invited to India for education, for health, and India wants to continue the humanitarian assistance and the people-to-people ties even now.
Okay. My last question to you is, Angad, why China constantly poke India on its borders? Why is it so?
So I think China realizes that India is a rival in the future as a big power, and it's its intention to distract India completely and provoke India so that US and other countries, they can engage more with India, and China can project to the world, let's see, India, US and all these countries are making a group against me, they are going against me, they are trying to create a bipolar world, and in that way, bring other countries in its own access to its Belt and Road Initiative and so on. So it's basically power rivalry.
Okay, why there is another angle to this, is Dalai Lama, the presence of Dalai Lama in India. So can you shed some light on this thing?
Yes, sir, I agree. There is an angle of the Dalai Lama, because India gave asylum to the Dalai Lama, and China still believes that the Dalai Lama has the potential to cause unrest in Tibet Autonomous Region in China. So I guess that's also a reason that China keeps provoking India on the border.
Okay, but Dalai Lama recently said a few days back that Dalai Lama believes in the one China policy. Clearly believes in the one China policy. That he just wants some kind of a constitutional independence from the one China policy from the China, right? Then should India keep on and stand to give the asylum or to keep on supporting the Tibetan issue?
As per my knowledge, Dalai Lama called for a semi-independent Tibet within the China. Yeah, that's like one China. But I think that the policy of asylum is based on humanitarian angle. So it doesn't have to do with because India also follows a one China policy. So Dalai Lama is an asylum seeker in India. He's a refugee in India. So if he wants to stay here in India, he can stay because India has a policy of giving asylum to the Tibetans from the 1950s.
But India is not giving asylum to the separatists who are in the POK region.
So it depends case to case. Maybe there are some issues with giving asylum to people from Pakistan occupied Kashmir because we know that Pakistan has tried to change the demography of Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So we don't know that what kind of people will be coming in. Maybe there are extremists coming in. So there are national security issues as well. But that's not probably the angle with the Tibetans.
Okay, that's all. The please, sir.
Okay, Ankad, you have exposure of universities in California or the US, and you have also seen that how universities in India perform. Like, we have not been able to have a rank in top 50 at global level. So, what are the reasons that you feel why India is not Indian universities are not able to compete with the Western universities?
So one major thing I noticed was that there's a lot of focus on research in the US universities. In India, I did my graduation from Punjab Engineering College, and what I noticed was that research was it was in the background. All my projects were in the background, and professors didn't really, they didn't really want the students to get into research. They wanted to teach their subjects and take examinations and check them and give them the grades and so on. But in the US, actually the education, the subject is in the background. You are actually doing research. So in every course I took, there was a project, and that project not only involved just sitting in an AC room and doing something on your computer. It was actually going out and meeting with people and listening to their problems and maybe applying your course to that issue. So that was one of the major differences I noticed between the Indian and the US universities. So I think research, the focus on research has to be brought in higher education, especially in India.
Okay.
The second thing was that and the culture here is like we have a kind of a very two distinct kinds of groups. Like students are very distinct from the teachers. Like we don't interact in that way with the teachers because they are like our parents. So we interact in that sense. But there, the teachers are like the professors are like friends. So the classroom experience is totally different. You are actually interacting with your professor. You are talking and learning. You're conversing and learning. But in India, it is just you are giving lectures and students are listening, and that's it. So that's also a major issue, major problem that I see in Indian universities. I think small things, 2 or 3 things, these can be improved, and I'm sure Indian universities will feature in the top 100, 200 rank.
Okay, fine. Okay, you are. Recently, we have seen that there is lots of debate about rewriting the history in India. So, can history be rewritten?
So, I think you can rewrite your opinions on history, but you can't rewrite history. So,
okay.
Maybe you can focus on one particular incident and focus less on the other, but history as it is cannot be rewritten.
Okay, fine. Okay, it is often said that history repeats itself. What do you mean by that statement? And give me one example from history where history was repeated.
So, there are some instances that when we look back and we say that this has happened before. So that's like basically history repeats itself. If I want to give an example from history, for example, Mahmud Ghazni came to India. His main focus was obviously plunder and loot. But so the Indian princes usually they totally ignored it. They let him run over their territories and take their all the riches and all, and he used to go back to Afghanistan. So the Indian princes didn't use that opportunity to realize that the northwest frontier can actually be a problem. So obviously they didn't do that, and then came Muhammad Ghori, the Ghorid dynasty. So history repeated itself. The Indian princes couldn't get together, and they just let him run over the whole country.
Okay, fine. Okay, one question is that recently in India there is a debate of one nation, one election. So what are the challenges that we can face, or is it feasible to have one nation, one election in India in a longer period of time?
So in my opinion, it's very difficult to have one nation, one election, because we have mechanisms of Article say 356 in which we can impose presidential rule in a state. And then there are also other ways in which governments usually don't complete a 5-year term, especially at the state level. So it will be very difficult to manage if like some state, there's no majority for one single party and no government is formed. How will you manage that state for 5 years? You can't have that state under president's rule for 5 years, because that would be against the democratic principles. So I think it's a very difficult thing to ensure one nation, one election in every 5 years, and that's a big challenge.
So is it fine that we should continue with the current model of conducting the elections?
Yes, sir. I think the current model of election is fine in the context of India.
Okay, fine. Okay, there is also debate regarding changing the names. We have seen that Gurgaon was renamed Gurugram,
Yes,
and also like Prayagraj, earlier it was Allahabad. So is it politics only involved in that, or it is more than that?
I think it's both politics and maybe logical reasons.
Or it is more of a symbolism?
So it has more to do with political symbolism actually.
Okay.
Like the party in power, which what's its orientations, rightist or leftist, what kind of a viewpoint it wants to like impose upon the country. I think it has to do more with that. Otherwise, as we say, what's in the name?
Okay, what is your stand? Should this exercise be done, or should the politicians should avoid these kind of?
Sir, I think if you want to do it, you should take people's consent. If the people of a region want the name of their region or city or state they want that to be changed, then you can change it. There's no problem with that.
Okay, fine. So from my side, it's okay.
Okay, Angad, that's all. Your interview is over. So just wait for 3-4 minutes. We will give you the feedback and we'll take your questions if they are. Right?
Okay, sir.
Okay, Angad. So how was your interview according to you?
Went good, I think.
Okay, went good. Okay. Angad, actually, we don't see the interview is more about how you communicate with the board, right? It is more about the communication, less about the knowledge. The knowledge part they have already checked in the mails, right? So the first and the foremost thing, you are good to go in the knowledge part. That's not our concern, right? So, but the major thing that I want to add from my side that from your body language. When you entered and when you have given for the first few minutes that it was seeming like that you are taking the interview in a lesser lighter way.
Okay. It was more of like casual, informal, little bit. There was lots of hand movement was there. Basically,
you need to put your hand on your laps,
Okay.
I think the culture or wherever in past you have given the interview was more
actually
like a corporate kind of
yeah.
interview it was. You need to be little formal in your dealings, and your hand movement one thing, and you need to be little more dispassionate. Like you were too much emotions were coming out when you were answering the things. You need to be little more like calm. You should be more calm down. You should calm down a little in that regard. Knowledge, I think your DAF itself speaks, and we can't say much on that. Your answers were also, they were balanced, and I don't think so much addition or we can comment much on that. But these two things, you should be more calm, because थोड़ा सा आप लग रहे थे कि हल्की सी एंजाइटी शायद वो हो या ना हो, थोड़ा सा मतलब जीलस काइंड ऑफ वो आ रहा था कि जैसे एक पैशनेट वो आता है कि आप काफ़ी ज़्यादा इनटू
ओवर एक्साइटेड,
हाँ थोड़ा उस हिसाब से उसको थोड़ा आप टोन डाउन कर लो. और एक हैंड मूवमेंट, और एक जब आप आते हो तो आपने बैठने के लिए नहीं मतलब जब तक हम नहीं कहेंगे या जब तक बोर्ड नहीं कहेगा कि टेक योर सीट, आपको नहीं बैठना है, ठीक है।
I had this in mind just for that.
हाँ मतलब ये हो जाता
That's absolutely
है,
fine.
हाँ
ठीक है
कोई दिक्कत वाली बात नहीं है इसमें।
एंड बाकी सब तो ठीक है, यू आर गुड टू गो, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, यू आर द मोस्ट प्रोबेबल कैंडिडेट,
यस,
you might be on the list, I think so, 90% chances are there, right?
देखो यार लिस्ट में तो आ ही जाओगे, there are 61 seats.
बैड टेस्ट की what
So yeah,
Yes, yes,
because
yes.
the interview will decide you what kind of a service will you get,
yes
right? So if you put a little bit effort, you might get into the executive, right? So
One thing I think you need to prepare better is that why after such a like brilliant track record you want to come into civil services, because it is more like you should prefer some research or those kind of things. So इसको एक मतलब presentable way में कि ज़्यादा superficial ना लगे कि उसको वो कर लेना, मतलब prepare. Rest I think it's
because
fine.
board को ऐसा लगेगा because you have a very good credentials, right? They can think that if you might not get into the executive, then you won't work as a BDO or in other allied services, right? So उसको justify कर देना कि really sir I want to get into the services, be it a BDO or something like it, because you have to show them कि आप इसके लिए passionate हो work के लिए, right? तो बस that's it, बाकी तो कुछ है नहीं, बाकी तो
So, इसमें तो एक मैं आपके साथ डिस्कस कर सकता
right,
हाँ।
right, of course.
इसमें तो मैंने बस यही सोचा था कि जैसे मेरा अभी जैसे सबसे लेटेस्ट जो मैंने प्रोजेक्ट किया था वो एक इंडोर एयर पोल्यूशन का था, जिसमें हम एक कम्युनिटी के लिए, एक शहर है स्टॉकटन कैलिफोर्निया में, तो उस कम्युनिटी के लिए हम वो डिज़ाइन कर रहे थे, अपने एयर फिल्टर्स डिज़ाइन कर रहे थे। तो उसमें मुझे मतलब एक चीज़ दिखी कि रिसर्च का फ़ायदा तभी होता है जब वो लोगों तक पहुँचती है। तो उसके लिए एक ज़रूरी है कि अब रिसर्च तो हम बैठ के कर लेंगे, बट वो लोगों तक पहुँच रही है, वो इम्प्लीमेंट हो रही है कि नहीं, वो एक पॉलिसी मेकर या एक ब्यूरोक्रेटिक सिविल सर्वेंट का एक फ़र्ज़ होता है। तो एक वो भी मेरे लिए एक मेन चीज़ है कि इसकी वजह से मैं सिविल सर्विस में आना चाहता हूँ।
That's very
हाँ।
good.
हाँ मतलब आप एक ऐड कर सकते हो कि एक वो मेजर वो है,
एक मोटिवेशन।
हाँ। और जो डैफ होगा मुझे नहीं लगता आप वो इतनी आपको स्पेस देंगे,
इसमें सर
इतना डिटेल
है
नहीं
नहीं
वो
सर।
देंगे वो
ये तो
DAF।
सर क्योंकि उन्होंने प्रॉपर हरियाणा वालों ने तो एप्लीकेशन रिट्रीव नहीं हुई मेरे से,
ओके,
उसमें तो लेकिन ये मतलब बेसिक ही है, तो रिसर्च प्रोजेक्ट्स वगैरह
हाँ
तो
हाँ
दिल्ली में
हाँ
बने
हाँ
उसमें।
हाँ हाँ।
तो ये तो मैंने वैसे बनाया था।
मेन उनका वही होगा, जैसे आप वो देखेंगे कि यूनिवर्सिटी
और
ऑफ
वो
कैलिफोर्निया वो सारा,
Yes.
और आपके ग्रेड्स मतलब दे आर ब्रिलियंट, उस पे ही ज़्यादा वो फोकस रहेगा।
Yes.
बाकी कोई इशू नहीं है, बाकी आपकी हॉबीज़ और ये सब, जैसे अपने IR लिखा है इंटरनेशनल, यू आर वेरी कीन इंटरेस्ट, राइट? तो न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ के जाना 2-4 दिन पहले का, जो भी
मैं रेगुलरली पढ़ रहा हूँ।
हाँ जो प्राइम न्यूज़ है उसको थोड़ा देखना, और हिस्टोरिकल एंड साइंस फिक्शन रीडिंग हैबिट्स हैं जैसे आपकी,
हाँ जी सर।
तो उस पर थोड़े से मोस्ट प्रोबेबल क्वेश्चन कैसे बन सकते हैं, जस्ट सर्कुलेट योर डैप अराउंड योर पीयर्स, कि अपने दोस्तों को, अपनी जो भी आपके आसपास है उनको, तो मोस्ट प्रोबेबल क्वेश्चन ही आप खुद ही बना के बैठ लो, इंटरनेट देख लो, उस मोस्ट प्रोबेबल क्वेश्चन कैसे बनते हैं,
हाँ
राइट?
जी सर।
इट्स ऑल अबाउट द ह्यूमन्स है कि वो भी ह्यूमन्स ही हैं जो बोर्ड इंटरव्यू लेगा, तो मतलब उसमें थोड़ा सा प्रिपेयर कर सकते हो।